Hello everybody, my name is Sniping is Fun, and I welcome you all back to a quick little added video I wanted to do tonight alongside my two recently recorded Smash Bros. Newcomer ideas, Spyro the Dragon and Fjorm from Fire Emblem Heroes. I wanted to do this video for a while now, for the last couple of weeks. I just never got a chance to record it, given I was busy with work, or I wanted to record other stuff, Smash or otherwise, or so on and so forth. But I wanted to add this video as an extra little added on video for you all tonight on my YouTube channel, recorded alongside when the Smash ones upload. And it's going to be another one of those lists for fun, no visual aids, no nothing, like I did with the 5 arcade cabinets I would like to own, or stuff like that, or like the 5 games I'm looking forward to in 2019, or stuff like that. Like, it's gonna be a fun list, me just picking a topic and giving my answers to it, and you guys in the comment section can comment on my choices and give your own choices, so on and so forth. It's been pretty fun so far. I've gotten some people to comment on those videos, and it's a fun little time to discuss and give our answers for some topics like this. And this time it's not going to be a 5 list, it's going to be a 6 list. And it's going to be, and you're going to see the thumbnail whenever I hopefully change the name of the video. You should already know what the video list is going to be about by now. But it's going to be the 6 video game consoles I've never owned, but I actually would like to. There are going to be 6 video game systems I've never owned in my life at any point up until now, but in the future sometime I would actually like to go out and buy them and go out and own them, stuff like that. So without further ado, let's get started on these 6 video game systems I never owned but want to play, I want to own. And the first one is going to be, and I pretty much have these all pretty much set up right here on a list that's from the oldest to the newest. And let's go and start with the oldest system I'd actually like to own. 1, the Atari 7200. Not the 2600 and surely not the 5400, but the 7200. More so because I would actually like to own an original system from Atari. I own collections like on the PS2 and whatnot, and like a plug and play like to the TV and whatnot I have had for years. And I've played numerous games of Atari, like Adventure and Pong and Bomb Jacks, whatever, I forgot now what some of the names of the Atari games are. But I have played Atari games, game wise, but I never actually owned the system. It is, and also not even just the collections, but I also have had like friends or family members or friends of family members, like their houses going to, and I have actually played some Atari in my life, like the old Star Wars games and whatnot. But yeah, I would actually like to own an original piece of hardware in my collection, legitimate cartridges, legitimate system. And I want to pick the 7200 specifically because as far as I remember, it can play 2400 games, so I'm getting bang for my buck and maybe it'll play like the original classics as well as like some of the newer, more updated ones. And Atari is actually, a lot of the games are super simplistic, but a lot of them are fun. And it'd be kind of cool to actually own a system that's older than my time in gaming. I never really, I don't have any system that's really older than the time I pretty much grew up in gaming, like Super Nintendo, Genesis, and stuff like that. Even NES, era, around that era. I don't really own like Intellivision, the ColecoVision, and whatnot. And I would love to own those two as well, but if I had to pick one classic system to own that's from back in that era, I would say the Atari 7200, because it's like 2 systems in one. I could play some of the classics and a lot of fun Atari games, and at least it's not the 5400, and I could actually own it in my collection and hopefully hook it up correctly. I forgot how the freaking 7200, 2400, 5400 they can hook up anymore. But it'd be kind of cool to own it just for the historical purposes. Even if I don't really play too many games on it, and I could probably get the same amount of value out of my Atari collection without all the hassle of hooking it up, it'd be kind of cool just in my collection to own one, just to say I do and be able to play something on its original hardware. 2, speaking of the NES before, I actually have never owned an original Nintendo. I've played it at friends' houses, I've played it at family members' houses, and so on and so forth, in people's houses I went to that just have it randomly boxed up in the back room. Oh, can I play this? Sure. Like friends and family and everything. It's the same thing with the Atari. I grew up playing a lot of these systems that I never actually owned, but I played them elsewhere. That since then I played in collections or in Wii Virtual Console and stuff like that. But like I said, I've never owned the original Nintendo. And given how big of a Nintendo fan you guys see me being, and I've owned every system from the Super Nintendo onward, it feels weird that I don't have the NES. I have like the Super Nintendo, the N64, the GameCube, the Wii, the Wii U, the Switch, but I don't own the original Nintendo, even though I own games for said system. And you'd be questioning, like, how am I playing them? I have a Retron 3, so it's a third-party, non-licensed system I could play the likes of Genesis games or Nintendo games or Super Nintendo games on. And I would like to actually get a system to go with that collection because I still want to buy more NES games because there's a lot of fun games on the NES, and actually having the original hardware would be freaking cool and it kind of complete my collection of Nintendo home consoles up until this point. So there's that. And yeah, whether or not it's a top loader or it's the original system, I know the top loader is a lot more expensive, a lot more sought after, but I think it's better hardware. But then you have like the original, which is the classic, and you want to own that one. But then unless I get it repaired by some game shop, chances are it might not work so well. But yes, the NES I need to own and would like to own. I never owned it before, but I have played it, and it complete my Nintendo collection. Number 3, the Sega Genesis. Just like I mentioned before, I own games in the Sega Genesis, the likes of Aladdin, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, stuff like that. But I don't own the original hardware. I play it on the Retron 3. And it'd be kind of cool to actually play Genesis games on actual hardware and actually own the Sega Genesis system for once in my life. Sega system for once in my life. I never owned the Sega system. I was always mostly a Nintendo gamer until I got the PlayStation 1. And then I've basically been Nintendo and PlayStation ever since, with one Xbox along the way, the original one. So yeah, that's been how it is. But I never owned a Sega Genesis, a Sega system at all in my life. The Master System, the Genesis, or whatever. So yeah, I would like to actually own it because I love a lot of the games on it. And yes, I do own a lot of the collections that have come out since then, like the Sonic collection on the GameCube, the Sonic and Sega collection on like the PS2 and the PS3 and whatnot. I do want to get that one that's on the Switch/PS4. Yes, I'm buying these games over and over and over again. I don't care. I love a lot of classic Sega games. But those game systems, those collections are mostly always just the Sega games. I mentioned that there's stuff like I have like freaking NBA Jam Tournament Edition and Aladdin. Like there's license-based stuff and other third-party stuff that you never see in these collections, or if you do, you see very rare, exceptions sometimes. Like especially when you buy like the off-brand like plug-and-play ones that have like Mortal Kombat or something. But yeah, I'd like to actually own the Sega Genesis. I remember that's a system I grew up with, just like I mentioned the Atari, just like I mentioned the NES. I played at a friend's house, more so the Genesis. The Genesis was, out of these 3, the one I played the most. I only played a little bit of Atari here and there as a kid, going to neighbors' houses or friends' houses or random people's houses. NES as well, but the Genesis is the one that, like, around the time I was growing up was when it was Super Nintendo and Genesis. So my friends had a Genesis. A lot of people I knew in my family had Genesis. So I was playing games at their house. And I certainly remember a time I went over to my cousin's house and I was so freaking addicted to it. My mom had to yank me out of the house and we had to leave because I was super addicted to playing Kid Chameleon. Oh, those were some good times. But yeah, I would like to actually own one. It'd be really fun to own one. So there you go. 4. The TurboGrafx 16. I never owned one, but there's one main reason I want to own one, and even then I could play a lot of the games probably on the Wii Virtual Console. I owned one of them on the Wii Virtual Console, a Japanese import of it, I think. No, that's the second one. The first one. The Bomberman franchise. There's other games on the TurboGrafx 16 as well, but, if there's one game series I would actually like to play its origins of, would be Bomberman. The earlier games of Bomberman, getting that multi-tap, 8 players, playing it like that, so on and so forth, even though there's probably easier ways of doing it in recent with all the new Bomberman games coming out, like, on the Switch and whatnot, just playing some of that classic Bomberman, 93, 94 and whatnot, just putting it up, and that's it. There's other games, there's other great games on the TurboGrafx 16, like Splatterhouse, I think was on a TurboGrafx 16 as well, I believe. And there's a lot of other great games on the TurboGrafx 16, but my main reason for this is solely to play all the Bomberman games, because I love Bomberman. It is a very fun series, and I grew up with Super Bomberman on the Super Nintendo, but to play games on other systems, other Bomberman from that time, that's my sole purpose. And yes, it might be like simplistic that I just want it for like one series, but I would be able to get out and do all the other games there on the TurboGrafx 16 as well. So there you go. Okay, let's get into a semi-newer system with 5. Another Sega system, the Sega Dreamcast. Like I mentioned before with the Sega Genesis a short while ago, I never owned the Sega system. And I don't really care so much about buying the Master System, and I surely don't care about buying the Saturn, But the Genesis and, like I mentioned, the Dreamcast is kind of cool. And I remember when the Dreamcast came out at Toys R Us, they had booths set up for it with Sonic. And I remember when Marvel vs. Capcom 2 came out, they had booths there, and I was playing that. And I surely remember the time when Sega was bringing out their Dreamcast, and this was the biggest, newest system. It was the first system of the 6th generation. It was also Sega's last system, and it'd be kind of cool to own a piece of history where they ended their hardware in the gaming industry. And there's a lot of great games on the Sega Genesis. Now this, unlike I mentioned with the Genesis, the NES, and the Atari, I never knew anyone that really owned a Dreamcast. So it's only a game I've ever played in stores with like demo kiosks and stuff like that. I never actually owned one. It'd be kind of cool because they have like, okay, Space Channel 5, you have all the Jet Set radio games, you have Crazy Taxi 1 and 2, you have Sonic Adventure, you have, like I mentioned, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and then like Royal Rumble, WWF Royal Rumble, and a lot of great games on it. The Genesis, for as short-lived as it was, had a lot of great games on it from from Sega or from third parties, and you get some good sports games on it, like like the NBA 2K series and stuff like that. That would be something I'd really like to own at some point in my life too. And number 6, the only handheld on this list. A PlayStation Portable, a PSP. I never owned any of the handhelds from, PlayStation. I never owned the PSP. Played it at a friend's house. He had Grand Theft Auto, and I think one of the Final Fantasies, and something else. And that's it. And I never owned a Vita. But yeah, like out of the Vita or the PlayStation Portable, I mean, the Vita is cool and all. And there's a lot of what I'm going to say about the PSP right now is going to probably be right on the Vita as well. But RPGs, a lot of RPGs, a lot of like remade stuff like Mega Man X, or Power Up, or Mega Man Power Up and whatnot. You can play some handheld Grand Theft Auto on there. You can play stuff like SOCOM. There's a lot of RPGs, as I mentioned, one of which is Tales of Hearts, I believe, is on the PSP. And I know a lot of the RPG reasons transfer over to the Vita because they have their own Tales remake on there, and I might be mixing it up. Tales of Hearts might be Vita, but there is a Tales game on the PSP as well. But so yeah, a lot of RPGs, a lot of like Japanese-based games, a lot of franchises I do like. Portable, Sony PlayStation, you can play some of those like the Grand Theft Auto games, the God of War games. It'd be kind of cool to own a portable PlayStation system. I've only ever owned PlayStation 1, 2, 3, and 4. I've never owned the PSP or the PS Vita. It'd be kind of cool to actually own them and play the games on it too. So the list is Atari 7200 for no other reason more so than just own a classic, and I can play some classic, Atari games. The NES, the complete My Nintendo collection. I don't own, or at least as of now, until Switch successor comes out, I never owned one. Surprising. Genesis and the Dreamcast, so I can own some Sega systems. Dreamcast because it's the latest system, a lot of great games on it. And the Genesis because of nostalgia reasons, a lot of great games on it. TurboGrafx 16, namely because of Bomberman. And the PlayStation Portable because of RPGs. That's it. Put in the comments below what video game systems that you never owned in your life would you actually like to own at some point? I mean, there's more than this. I probably would like to own every single game system at some point when I have room and places to put it. But right now, that's kind of not really opportunity and choice for me. So I have to be particular when I buy systems. But when I get more room, I'd like to buy everything and own everything and be like, Mike Matei and James Rolfe and stuff like that. Just own everything. But yeah, like those are the 6. If I limit it to 6, if I limit it to 5, probably just take out the Atari or the maybe the PSP or Genesis or something. But I won't own them all anyways. But put in the comments below what you think. What systems that you never owned would you like to own at some point? If you want to go back and be a collector and buy old stuff or whatever. Or stuff that's out now even. Maybe you don't own a PS4 or an Xbox One. You want to own one of those. I don't know. Discuss it down there. How about my list? What are your thoughts? And discuss it down there. My name is Titus1. Peace. Please subscribe if you want to. Have a lovely day. I'll see you all later.